Hi, welcome to 7 Reasons Why Projects Fail. Praise Ion Media 2009, www.praizion.com. Let's talk about 7 reasons why projects fail. In all my years of managing projects, be they aerospace, IT, gaming, music, records management, whatever the project I've worked, I've found out that the same reasons reoccur for project failure in an organization. Reason 1. Lack of delegated authority. Lots of projects end up with a project manager midway. The project manager hasn't been authorized to even do what he's doing. He finds himself in the middle of junk, trying to sort it out. Many a time there's no project charter, there's no requirement, there's no formal document to authorize the project. In the Pembroke Guide 4th edition, reference is made to the project charter. The project charter is a document that should authorize the project manager to apply resources and do the work. It should also contain a high-level narrative of what the requirements are, what the purpose of the project is. Also, the business case to justify why that project is in existence should also be in that document. So, as a result of a lack of delegated authority, you find a project manager who doesn't even know the details on why he's on the project. So, at the end of the day, the project sponsor or the champion or whoever conceived the idea for a project ends up leaving, and he's replaced by someone else who thinks the idea is a waste of time, it hasn't gone through any formal authorization process, so there's only one champion. Perhaps he was even a VP or a CEO who had that idea, but there was no formal documentation. So, once that individual goes, the project is thrown out of the window after millions and millions of dollars have been spent. Also along the lines of authority, you find out that in a huge organization, because there's no formal process for authorizing a project, you find out that perhaps in New York someone's working on one project, and the project that that person in New York is working on is exactly the same thing as the person in LA. He's working on a similar project to do exactly what the system in New York is meant to do for the organization. But because there's no formal authorization process for the project manager doesn't even know there's another project manager working on that project, you have the same initiatives taking place in two places, and at the end of the day they decide to shut one down, or perhaps someone else replaces the CEO and shuts down the project because they feel it's a waste of time, it wasn't justified, or there's duplicate efforts. So, every organization should have a formal process for authorizing a project. You could have what we call candidates brought forward to a meeting, and those candidates should be screened by functional experts, people in the organization who could serve as some form of expert judgment to validate and verify that those projects make sense, and they could go through a more rigorous process looking at net present value, internal rate of return, sunk costs, or anything else that's appropriate to the endeavor. And the key goal of the authorization process is to obtain buy-in from all the key stakeholders for longevity of the project, such that even if whoever initiated the idea leaves the organization, perhaps the VP or the CEO, that project will still continue to completion, because if the need was really a need, then they wouldn't be able to shut the project down as inconsequential. So authority on the project manager's end, delegated authority, and that can only come through formal verification, where all the powers that be are aware of the projects that need to be completed and identify them with that respect. Reason 2. Lack of involvement of the user. Now, senior management has authorized the project and there's buy-in from senior management. However, in all the requirements gathering, the project manager and the team fail to identify that the key users of that system should be involved in the project, in the requirements, in the testing. They need to be involved from the start and all throughout the development. I know it requires time and effort, and they need a cost center to charge to. However, that effort or the lack thereof could make or break the project. There should be resources from operations, from business ops, that are ready to help to ensure that that project meets the need for which it was undertaken. At the end of the day, it's not the VP or the CEO using these systems at the granular level. You have people who use them on a daily basis to ensure that the work in the organization is done properly. Those people need to be engaged from start to finish. Regardless senior management involvement, you also need management at a lower level. The people using the systems will tell you whether it makes sense to do certain things in a certain way. Reason 3. No requirements. Not having requirements on a project is one of the key things that can absolutely break the project right from the get-go. In the PMBOK Guide 4th edition, in the Project Scope Management knowledge area, the Collect Requirements process is the first process in defining scope on the project. The reason why it's the first process is in order to define scope, you need requirements. If there are no requirements, it means that you're plowing down a street without seeing what's ahead. And that can be very dangerous because at the end of the day, you hit a brick wall and the project comes to an end. You can get requirements that you need if you identify your stakeholders early in the project and you get buy-in from the stakeholders. The Identify Stakeholders process in the Project Communications Management knowledge area in the PMBOK Guide highlights how you can identify your stakeholders early in the project. You need to go through a process to identify these stakeholders, and once you've identified them, you need to collect requirements. The project manager needs to wrestle down those people to get those requirements, because a lot of times people are not so ready to give you what they need because they don't know. Not everyone's an IT professional, so they don't really know how to articulate what they want, and they find it quite cumbersome having all these long requirements gathering meetings, so they'd rather evade the issue and let someone else do it for them. And at the end of the day, at the 99th hour, during testing, they're like, oh, we forgot this. Why didn't we put this in? That's why you need to have these requirements gathering meetings, these interview sessions, brainstorming sessions, in order to find out what exactly is needed in the system. You can't just start development without knowing what is going to be produced. Some functions, like engineering, give you no option. You either have your plans or you don't. But many a time in IT, due to emerging project management practices in other circles of project management, you find out that everyone wants to do things in an iterative fashion, and that could lead to a downfall. Nothing wrong in development projects, but there should be some requirements.